you so much, everyone, for joining us today. We have a wonderful presentation on tap with Daniel Frisch of Daniel Frisch Architecture by Pierre Debbas. Pierre, thank you so much. I'll let you take the reins and run the program as you normally do in the way that you normally do. Thank you again for everyone that joined us today. I hope you all stay safe and be well. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. I appreciate it. Guys, thank you. I'm excited today to do a class with Daniel and James. And, you know, you guys know we're doing bi-weekly CE classes through the New York Real Estate Center. And for those of you guys, I'm sure everybody attending today, we've seen a number of times over Zoom in the last few weeks, but I'll give you a 5-second summary on myself. My name's Pierre Debbas, and I'm a partner and founding member of Romer Debbas, which is one of NYRAC's sponsors. And we're a real estate boutique law firm in Midtown. You know, today's a tough day. I'll preface it, if I may, for a minute or two, just by saying, you know, we as a society are obviously going through a very challenging time today. And I hope a session like this gives a little break in the day and a little distraction from everything going on. And, you know, hopefully we move onward and upward once this is all over. And I know the timing of today's class is a little difficult, but, you know, we thought it'd be a great, you know, distraction for an hour and a half, and, you know, hopefully bring us together, and, you know, and we can focus on better things in the future. So with that being said, I'm actually going to be doing, I'm more so just moderating. Daniel and James are going to go through really the alteration process of altering residential properties in New York City, issues we've encountered, what you guys as brokers need to be aware of, and also talking about how the alteration process will change post-pandemic. They have a great outline and presentation that I've seen that they're going to go through pretty thoroughly with you guys. And really, what we really want to emphasize today is kind of keep an interaction amongst all of us. Questions, hearing your guys' questions and input as much as humanly possible in the session, which, you know me, I'm always one to try to push everybody to be interactive with these things. So with that being said, let me turn it over to Daniel. We can get started.
Thank you, Pierre. Good morning. My name is Daniel Frisch, and I am the principal of Daniel Frisch Architecture, a Midtown architectural firm specializing in high-end residential renovations in New York City. First, a very big thank you to NYRAC for inviting us to present to you today, and to Pierre for sponsoring and for moderating. I've listened to a few of the NYRAC Zoom programs, and before COVID-19, my colleagues and I came downtown to a Continuum event. Your programming is superb, and I hope you find our presentation equally captivating. So you know what's coming. Our presentation will be in 3 parts. The first speaks to who we are and what we do, and why we think collaboration with residential brokers is a no-brainer. The second part presents case studies as proof of concept. And the third is an introduction to the tools you can use to help your buyers budget for potential renovations and go forward with acquisitions. On the call with me is James Schriebel, who oversees just about everything at Daniel Frisch Architecture, DFA, including the website tools and technology behind our studio program, and Kent Schell, one of our former contractors who now runs our construction administration team. Finally, Gus Almarudis, who owns our partner construction firm Zoom Contracting, not to be confused with Zoom video conferencing, which has enabled us all to virtually connect today. I founded DFA 30 years ago, and Gus, with his brother Steve, founded Zoom in 2001. Together, we have 50 years of entrepreneurial experience in residential design and construction, and are excited to present to you today the Dfa Studio Program, a pre-priced, pre-fix design, approval, and construction program for estate condition Manhattan apartments requiring full renovations. To the best of our knowledge, we're the first group to offer such a program. We'll take you through all the details, but first a little history. During the 2008 financial crisis and subsequent recession, we stepped up our tracking and analysis of construction cost data to better help clients create more accurate project budgets. By 2011, we were again fully subscribed, yet our data demonstrated that the metrics and business climate had fundamentally changed. Prior to the recession, clients had been more willing to indulge their personal taste than during the recovery. And when acquiring real estate and budgeting for renovations, homeowners were determined to economize, just as they are today, and as we expect them to be when we reopen. Superstorm Sandy hit in October 2012, and we found ourselves locked out of our office, not due to a pandemic, but rather by Extel's dangling crane at 157. Our 56th Street office was in the blast zone should the crane come hurtling down. Thankfully, it did not. That week, I met with many of our then current clients and contractors to better understand what was going well and what wasn't. Almost universally, projects were running behind schedule and over budget. With a little bit of research, we determined that client-directed late-stage change orders were largely to blame. We put our heads together and asked, how much less expensively and with fewer cost overruns could we build if we removed the last 10% of client decision, really indecision, and took away the ease with which owners add scope and make changes once construction begins. The week following Superstorm Sandy, we sat down with this in mind and created our studio program. What is the Dfa Studio Program? The Dfa Studio Program is the first and only pre-priced, pre-fixed custom design and construction program for Manhattan apartment renovations. Let me let that sink in. Our program is pre-priced. This collaboration between Daniel Frisch Architecture and Zoom Contracting is an all-inclusive renovation experience, one that is data-driven and experience-proven and is based on performance, not promises. Projects that fit the Dfa Studio Program criteria are ones that require full renovations, especially estate condition apartments. Owner priorities typically include investment stewardship and a desire for a streamlined, less involved design process. The studio program works particularly well when ownership may be short-termed and when the ease of a future sale is desired. The program is perfect for first-time buyers, young families, empty nesters, and for pied-à-terres. The Dfa Studio Program offers custom architecture with uncompromised design and quality in a single streamlined package and at a 20 to 25% discount. Our architect-led design teams take exactly the same approach to design and approvals as we do for our most discerning and engaged clients. A project would not be a Dfa project without our unwavering commitment to programming and schematic design. Together with the capability of the skilled tradesmen of Zoom Contracting, every Dfa Studio Program project is an inspired custom creation. Our teams oversee every step of the process, from the preliminary design phases through punchless completion, and we obtain all building management, DOB, and LPC approvals. We even cover expediting and filing fees, as well as any engineering costs. Best design, better price. We accomplish this by streamlining the process, working closely with our trusted contracting partner, and by offering a prefix menu of materials and selections. As Henry Ford might have said, the Dfa Studio Program gives clients the opportunity to choose the color of their walls, kitchens, and baths, as long as they choose white. Dfa Studio Program projects are full renovations. In addition to flawless design, we tackle the most complicated and often unseen aspects of every project. A good paint job is a poor investment if what's behind the walls is not up to date. As appropriate, projects include central air, electrical service upgrades, full rewiring and state-of-the-art lighting, new kitchens and baths, window replacements, new wood floors, installed on new subfloors with sound underlayment, and of course, full skim coating and paint. We even pre-wire for distributed AV and bulletproof Wi-Fi. Dfa Studio Programs projects are much more than cosmetic. Full specifications are on our website, but for the purposes of this presentation, here are some of our standards. Kitchen cabinetry is custom fabricated in Zoom Shop, and we offer two styles, a simplified painted shaker and a flush high gloss polyester. Countertops are either honed Carrara or white Caesar stone. Backsplashes are either subway tile or back painted glass. Appliances are Bosch, Bertazzoni, and Liebherr, upgradable to Wolf, Sub-Zero, and Miele. Secondary baths are subway tile with marble accents. Master baths are honed Carrara with custom millwork. Bath fixtures are by Waterworks. All baths get heated floors. Hardwood floors are rift and quartered solid white oak, either herringbone or 4-inch plank, installed on sound underlayment and site finished. Doors are the recessed panel type with Baldwin brushed chrome hardware. All lighting is LED and downlights are by USAI, who we believe to be the very best manufacturer in this quickly evolving industry. We use Benjamin Moore paint, color OC59 vanilla milkshake, satin on trim, matte on walls. We constantly update specifications as tastes evolve and as specific material performance is evaluated. By doing so, we consistently deliver exquisite and timeless high-end projects based on our greatest design hits and an overall discount of approximately 25%. The Dfa Studio Program in NYRAC. We launched our studio program back when times were quote unquote normal, and even then we had to overcome a good deal of skepticism. Our contracting partners were skeptical that we could pre-price construction based simply on our data, and even more so that we would be able to build profitably at such a discounted rate. Our clients were equally skeptical that the quality would be the same given the discounted price, and also that the finished product would not be cookie cutter, which it is decidedly not. We also sought to overcome the hesitancy of real estate brokers who have historically struggled with the value proposition of estate condition apartments requiring full renovations. Ask real estate brokers what buyers want most, and you hear phrases like turnkey, move-in ready, just bring your clothes, and just renovated. And if an apartment needs work, it is much wiser to describe the work as cosmetic and never to promote a property as a gut reno. Project fear has resulted in the well-founded consensus that estate condition apartments requiring full renovations are difficult to sell. Case by case, we are changing the meaning of bring your architect from buyer beware to what a fantastic opportunity. We now find ourselves gearing up to reopen post-COVID-19, and like you, we have every confidence that New York City will recover and that the high-end real estate market in Manhattan will once again flourish. When this rebound inevitably occurs, we expect to see a flood of estate condition apartments come online, most of which will not have been touched in decades. Instead of being scared of the renovation proposition, the Dfa Studio Program platform gives buyers the confidence to consider buying and renovating. Perhaps together, we can turn the product class from one buyers avoid into one they seek. Part 2, case studies. The exciting news is that it works. To date, we have completed 10 studio program renovations, and the current all-in hard cost for a gut renovation of a landmark district pre-war apartment stands around $500 per square foot, with an additional $100 per square foot earmarked for soft costs. This compares to similar non-program projects in our office, whose hard costs currently average $650 per square foot, with soft costs of $150 per square foot. $600 versus $800 all in may not sound so significant on a per square foot basis, but it represents a $250,000 savings on every $1 million spent. And with change order averages that have decreased from 14% typically to about 2.5%, client and contractor relationships are much more collegial. As we have developed the Dfa Studio Program, we've had a couple of very pleasant surprises. The first came in the way of direct feedback from brokers that certain buyers had been absolutely unwilling to consider buying a project apartment until meeting us and getting to know the Dfa Studio Program. These buyers typically wanted to live in a home of their own, not someone else's, but didn't have the bandwidth for a project or were uncertain about future plans. It turns out that 2 of these clients did have life changes. The first, a job relocation, and the second, a new baby, occasioning both owners to sell their apartments soon after completing their renovations. On the screen are the econometrics of these 2 case studies. Case study 1, a 3-bedroom apartment on Lower 5th Avenue of 1,665 square feet. It was purchased April of 2014 for $3.275 million. Renovation hard costs were $560,000, including 3.1% change orders, for a total square foot basis of $335 per square foot. Their total invested basis was $3.835 million. They sold the apartment in August of 2017 for $4.775 million, just 3.5 years after purchase. Their increase in value was $940,000, or 24.5%, not including soft costs. Case study 2, similarly on Lower 5th Avenue, this time a 1,250 square foot 2-bedroom apartment, purchased in December 2015 for $2.725 million. Renovation hard costs were $540,000, including 0.5% change orders, or $430 per square foot. Their total basis was $3.265 million, and they also sold in August of 2017 for $3.6 million, only 20 months after purchase. Their increase in value is $335,000, or 10.3%, not including soft costs. As for the brokers, both owners used their buyer's broker for the resale. I have 2 young children who are both at home and are distance learning and are enjoying writing haikus. In the spirit of the day, our office had a little contest, and here's the winner. This place has good bones. Scary unknowns hurt the deal. Pop champagne with us. Part 3 of the tools. It seems today that every business presents and markets itself as a technology company. After all, what better way is there to attract venture capital? While we are not a technology company and we've never sought funding, technology and analytics are essential components of the Dfa Studio Program. Fundamental to the program has been our commitment to openly sharing our specifications, tools, and estimating algorithms, all online and without privacy considerations. On your screen now is our open source cost and savings calculator, which you can each access and use at your convenience by visiting danielfrisch.com/studio/program/calculator. You can follow along as we click through the variables. For this example, we have picked a 2,000 square foot pre-war apartment in a landmark district. The hypothetical project will need 10 new windows and central air. And our imaginary client has selected an appliance upgrade and 6 motorized shades, blackouts plus solars in their 3 master bedroom windows. As you can see, the cost and saving calculator displays 2 columns of pricing. The left column sets forth an estimate for a project conventionally designed and constructed, which is based on data collected from completed projects in the past 5 years. The Studio Program column to the right shows the discounted hard and soft costs of the Dfa Studio Program for the same hypothetical project. In this case, the Studio Program achieves a $288,000 total savings. Significantly, Dfa and Zoom Contract will both sign contracts to design and build the project based on these numbers after a single meeting with the client and before pencil is put to paper. We hope that as brokers, you will familiarize yourselves with our website tools, especially our cost and savings calculator, and will feel comfortable working with these tools when advising buyers and sellers on estate condition apartment transactions. As you get to know us and our tools, you will also recognize that Dfa Studio Program is not for everyone or for every project. Some apartments do not require full renovations. Some projects do not benefit from design limitations, nor is investment stewardship always a top priority. Dfa and Zoom are here for you and your clients, regardless of project size or complexity. Please let us know what you are working on and how we can be part of the process. Thank you very much for your time today. We'd love to hear your comments and take your questions. And I can say at the tail end of this presentation, feel free to ask questions about the alteration process, the reopening process, what boards are doing, what's happening with liability, and all the rest, because that's what we're spending most of our time every day focusing on, as opposed to our studio program and what's going to happen when we reopen. Thank you very much.
Daniel, thank you for that. I think now, if anybody has any questions, just make sure to unmute yourself. And I think we'd like to turn the segment over to an open conversation from here on out.
Thanks, Pierre.
Hi, Daniel. This is Kathy Taub.
Hi, Kathy.
Hi. Thank you so much. I love this program. I think it's such a great idea and can be incredibly useful for all of us. A couple questions. What do you anticipate, or do you anticipate when we reopen for renovations and buildings that costs will increase by virtue of limitations of how many workers can be in an apartment or going up and down in elevators, and where one building that says the workers can't leave for lunch and must use the toilet on site? How do you anticipate, and do you anticipate costs to change because of that, and because of potential delays?
Thank you, Kathy. That's a daily process we're going through, trying to think through this and figure out what's going to happen. And we frankly don't have enough data yet. We have the Reopen New York paper, and we have any number of very, very long papers from attorneys, managing agents, talking about how we're going to reopen. The short answer is that in the short term, I don't think it will affect anything. Contractors are going to be thrilled to get back in. and I'll let Gus Almarunas jump in here in a moment. In the long term, should we need to use partial resources or under-resourced things, we're all going to have to change the way we do business, which means we're going to shift as much work as possible to offsite, and some of that's impossible. And then there will be an impact on costs. But we also recognize that our contractors are desperate to come back to work. So for the immediate future, our goal is to get reopened. And then we'll start to see it as it comes through to find out how many of the restrictions and challenges are long-term versus until we find a vaccine or something like that. And Gus, if you want to speak to that, you've been gearing up your team to get their PPE in place and understand the rules and take their classes. So you know more about this than I do, or than ever will.
Yes, thank you, Dan. We have been preparing, and we have actually acquired PPE gear. All our team is ready to start. We have enough PPE gear to last us a while. The only problem that we foresee, as you mentioned before, like how do people get to the buildings and that, we've thought about it and we've concluded we have a plan of how to get everybody's temperatures checked every morning. That's already set. We have our own return to action plan prepared, so the building is not concerned, which are pretty clear to follow all the guidelines provided to us. And the only problem that I see now is the limitation. So let's say a project that you want to finish in 4 or 5 months would require 9, 10 guys or 15 guys at once to run it to achieve that. Now we have limitations. Maybe these projects are be run with 5 guys or 6 guys in order to be able to create proper social distancing. So that might slow down the process, but still the job can get done just a little bit slower. And as time goes by, as these restrictions lax, and hopefully there's a vaccine or a solution to this problem, until then, this is, I think, the world we're going to be living in. Thank you.
Hey guys, Daniel, can I jump in with a quick question actually?
Of course.
So we represent about 75 co-op and condo boards. And one thing that I'm anticipating coming up, some boards over the years have had a policy that you can only have X amount of renovations taking place in a building at the same time. A lot of buildings don't have this. From my experience in representing buildings, majority of them do not have that cap. Depending on the size of the building, I've even seen it as small as 1 unit at a time. Are you guys anticipating that this policy becomes more widespread throughout the city? And if so, what would be the formula for determining what's the appropriate amount of apartments to be able to allow renovations at the same time?
It's a great question, Pierre. We're currently working with a number of boards where we have multiple clients in the same building. Some have been interrupted, some are waiting in a queue, and we're trying to suss that out. We've started to split our buildings into tiers. So if you are on Parker 5th or Lower 5th, and you're in a top building, and we all know which ones they are, the building queue will be pretty much inescapable as far as we can tell. Mm-hmm. We have had, sometimes it's by tower, sometimes it's by elevator. We work with one building downtown where we've done 15 renovations in a 65 unit building, and kind of the nicest one down on Lower 5th. And they are not entirely convinced they will reopen on June 8th, although they're trying to make it so, but they will allow us to come back in and finish first the project that has just a little bit of work. And when that client moves in, the contractors that might be working in another apartment won't have the opportunity that day. And so for the best buildings, the most desirable buildings, we may be going to a 1 project at a time modality, which is more restrictive than anything we've seen, whether it's at the Beresford or downtown. Right. And a lot of it depends on their elevator capacity and the quality and the managing agent reviewing engineers and architects who are saying, yes, we can take in this many people per day versus another building that has more constriction. And it's going to be case by case, but we had seen the trend towards building queues previously. We're going to see more of a trend that way without question.
Yeah, I think it's an important note to be aware of. Myself as a real estate attorney and everybody, all the attendees is brokers, that if we're representing clients, we know intend on renovating a unit, whether, you know, a gut renovation or simply cosmetic. This is a question we all have to ask. I always say, you know, it's mainly on me as a real estate lawyer to ask this in my due diligence, but you guys as brokers don't necessarily want to waste your time trying to negotiate a deal, even if there's a queue of, you know, a dozen units in the building and your client is, you know, not planning on moving in until they perform a gut renovation. So I think that's going to be one of the more common themes that we will see post-pandemic that we have to be aware of as real estate professionals.
Following on that, Pierre, to the brokers who are on the call, anytime you want us to review an alteration agreement or to let you know what we know about a particular board, a particular managing agent, we're happy to come into that because it very much affects the timing with how we take clients through a process. For instance, we rarely say to a client, walk into your board and tell them that you want to, in your board interview, and tell them that you're going to gut renovate an apartment. Sometimes it's obvious, but it's really important to those buyers to know when they're likely to do work and how long work will take.
Daniel, hi, this is June Gottlieb from Warburg.
June.
And hi, and from NYRAC. Question for you. Since sometimes buyers really need help sort of navigating the pre-process, if and when the time comes when we're allowed to go back into apartments and actually walk through a space, would you be willing to come before they've signed a contract just to give them an idea of what it will take to whip the apartment into shape, how long, to just help them do like a pre-cost estimate?
Always, and what we want to do with our tools is make it so that you can do a lot of that yourself as well. So if you walk into an apartment and it hasn't been touched in 40 years, it's easy to jump to the conclusion that it's going to need a full renovation. And you can count windows. You can say, we want central air. We have to add a toggle to our website now for electrical service upgrades because we realize it isn't in there. And
Right.
pretty much anytime you're bringing in central, you're upgrading power to an estate condition apartment. And you can toggle through and you can get to a budget that's pretty reasonable. In fact, so reasonable that we'll all sign contracts to execute at that number, whether within the studio program or without, to kind of give you a bracket of just how much money it will take to, you know, put the apartment together the way that they want to. And then once your client says, okay, I understand that this is a $1 million commitment or a $500,000 commitment, I really think this represents good value. I want to pursue this. Absolutely. We want to be there in lockstep with you and help you make that deal happen.
Thank you. And are you interested in doing projects if it needs just, let's say, kitchen and 2 bathrooms or 3 bathrooms as opposed to a total gut? Are you interested in that work or no?
Absolutely. We're thrilled to have that work. I think anybody who says they're not thrilled to have work going forward is misrepresenting their position. But the thing that we can't do is we can't use the calculator tool to budget it. We have to budget it individually because we know a kitchen costs $150,000 and a bathroom costs $62,000, but it isn't a gut renovation, which is how the calculator works to calculate gut renovations. So we have to look at that and say, okay, this is where it would be $1 million project if it were a gut renovation, becomes a $500,000 project because it's strategic and surgical.
Correct.
But thrilled to do it, thrilled to have the work, and that work is every bit as important to us as the larger work.
Thank you.
I have a couple of follow-up questions. Kathy here again. Do you anticipate a lot of delays with the DOB, given that when we're back in business, there will be a big backlog?
Great question. I'd love to blame the DOB for everything in my life. But in this case, the DOB is actually is functioning as smoothly, if not more smoothly than they ever have, in that they're not seeing as much activity. So their examiners are right on the ball. We're getting virtual approvals, which we were never able to. We got a landmark approval on a townhouse renovation downtown, a tiny little addendum to their original application that has taken, I don't know, 9 months to get landmarks to say we can put 2 sconces on a townhouse, and the approval came through yesterday during the middle of this pandemic and everything else. So the DOB is not, the DOB is actually working to get onto a virtual platform, which is something they've wanted to do since I've been working here in the city. So the DOB really is not where we predict challenges. We predict challenges with the boards, with managing agents, with superintendents, with queues, as Pierre suggested, and with contractor availability. And then most importantly, how one builds in a time of social distancing, if and for how long that takes.
I have another one, which
I love these.
So it's a joint question for you and Pierre. Given that so many of the high-end buildings have limitations of either 3 to 6 months before liquidated damages kick in on a renovation, do we expect that we might be able to make some headway with asking co-ops to be more lenient on those rules, given that there will be delays by virtue of the social distancing, et cetera?
I love that one, but Pierre, I'd love to hear your view before I kick it to the curb. If you give me a legal opinion, that would be awesome. That would be
No,
worth
of course. To be honest with you, I think that boards are going to have to adapt to the rest of society. You know, I mean, having all the deadlines. I mean, when I negotiate architects agreements, you know, we always try to have a deadline and a per diem penalty for every day after a certain amount of days has elapsed from when the completion date was estimated. We're all going to have to change those dates. Everybody, lawyers, co-op boards, the consumer. I mean, nobody, even when we reopen, sorry, that was a tough one to get out there. Even when we hit that point, we're not all going to know or forecast what the world's going to look like. And, you know, the DOB is great now. Are they going to be great in 6 months from now? You know, how are things going to change? Are the social distancing requirements that buildings impose going to be sufficient? Are the buildings going to change the rules as we have trial and error? So I think all buildings are going to have to adapt, but it's going to be a matter of time, Kathy. I don't think any building's necessarily worried about that aspect of a renovation process right now.
I can build on that, and one of which is a story. We realized about a month ago, 6 weeks ago, that the essential construction also could include a residential renovation in a co-op, as long as only one worker came to the site. So we filed for, we asked a number of our buildings, hey, could we get one worker in there to, you know, do fill in the blank painting, something that would help our clients move back in more readily when this was over, or it could jumpstart something. Only 2 of the buildings said yes. One of the buildings said yes, and we got our contractor there, and the I think it was his electrician showed up to do the first day's worth of work, and with hours, the neighbors complained and said, this isn't right. How could you do this? This is unsafe. We can't let our housekeepers in, but you have an electrician coming in who we don't know. It might have come in on the subway. And he got kicked out within hours of arriving. And so we realized that no one yet knows how this is going to go, but we know that the owner cannot be held responsible for liquidated damages if they're not allowed to do work. So we think quite sincerely that if you're working with the right people and if you're working with the right spirit of partnership, the current requirements to complete and the liquidated damages that come with it are just simply going to get kicked to the curb if we're all working together until such time that reasonable liquidated damages clauses can be written by co-ops based on whatever else it is. We have not found any resistance to that or any desire for a co-op to further penalize an owner who cannot meet the requirements of the alteration agreement as of yet. I'm sure there will be a fight, and Pierre, I want you on my side if we have that fight.
Let me know.
I can add to this. There's some new guidance from DEP. So in the past, we would have to create what's called a noise mitigation letter and post it on the door. And we didn't even actually have to file it with DEP. But if somebody complained for noise, DEP would said they inspect it down and make sure we had a noise mitigation plan in place. And this has been going on for the past few years. It has not been a big deal, so most people don't know about it. But now, because lately a lot of people have been working from home, and it seems that a lot of people will continue to work from home, the DP changed their guidance, and I don't think we had this happened a few days ago. I haven't actually even discussed it with Dan yet, where they're requiring us to cover the floors with a 1/4-inch rubber and create a sound room for our heavy tools. And they actually even gave us a list of which tools we should buy that have a low decibel rating. So these are brand new rules in place. Ultimately means I need to spend about $20,000 in tools. But that's all that is at the end of the game. We're talking about projects that are, tools last longer. So if we have to change some tools, we're gonna change some tools. The logic behind how do you make a soundproof room to run your table saw on the job site or a chop saw, that we haven't dealt with it yet. Pretty sure we'll figure it out somehow.
Yeah, following that, I don't think you can underestimate how resourceful New York City contractors are, the good ones. We're going to find ways to renovate, build apartments, to have businesses, and going forward, it's going to be a moving landscape. There's no question that week by week we're going to learn new things, and there's going to be little consistency at the beginning, building to building. The best way that we can find consistency will probably be, just like we do with contractors, creating kind of tiers of buildings. You kind of know that most of the Upper Park Avenue and Upper Fifth Avenue buildings are going to be similar. The buildings on 79th and 72nd Street are going to follow along. And then as you go further east, they'll fall off a little bit. Downtown, there'll be a different set of criteria. Townhouses will be totally different in rules, which will follow almost specifically just the state guidelines. And we are all going to figure this out. I know this with the same certainty. I know that the real estate market will rebound. I know that I'm proud to be part of a group that can say, hey, let's move this forward and let's keep pricing where it is and let us figure it out, as opposed to any kind of opportunism that comes from contractors that can, or contractors that are going to fail because they didn't budget properly. You want to be with, again, coming out of this kind of pandemic and these kind of situations, it's all about being with people of substance. And that includes the buildings, the managing agents, the legal team, the real estate brokerage team, the architects and their contractors. This is just not a time for indulgence or for, brinksmanship. This is a time to find partnership and to find ways to help all of us get through this for these projects that are the first ones that come out after we're able to rebuild. Someone's got to have a curveball.
Check the message. Is anybody currently working with anybody who's looking to purchase a unit, take advantage of the market that is looking for a gut renovation, or no?
Seems like somebody should be.
I think people are buyers are very wary of the gut renovations now for all the reasons that we've been discussing. You're very optimistic, which is great, Daniel. I have a number of listings that are estate condition apartments, and I'm pretty concerned about selling them because they're in buildings with fairly draconian policies to begin with.
Yeah, we, in talking with our board liaisons and managing agents and residents, they want to reopen as badly as we do. They want to see these apartments trade. They want to welcome new residents to buildings. They just don't know how to yet. But next week's going to be a big bellwether when we start to see contractors arriving at service entrances again. June 13th was the last day that Governor Cuomo had, as of right now, his executive order in place to continue the lockdown. And I think that none of that will matter while we're boarding up storefronts. we have to wait for that to pass through as well. But as we all know, that will happen, and you'll see the nervousness change to opportunism fairly quickly. We've seen that, or at least I think we all have to believe that that's where we're headed. Believing anything else is a little too self-defeatist for all of us, I think. And so we just want to be prepared when it comes and have programs of substance that are not indulgent, that are not marketing driven, that are that the performance tracks with what it will happen with new projects. Right? We want to give absolute confidence to people that what they think is going to happen will happen, because we don't see any emotional flexibility for people to go through the usual, oh yeah, well, I bought it and then it cost me twice as much as I thought and took me 3 times as long, and these people bait and switched me. What we want to do with all of you is find a way to burnish this product class, because it's so attractive from a lifestyle standpoint, and it's so attractive from an economic standpoint, because anything that is ready to buy is going at a crazy price out of fear of project, or is kind of cookie cutter because there are 40 of the same condo available, and you really don't understand where that underlying asset's going. But these co-ops and these estate conditioned apartments aren't going to take another drop anytime soon, right? We have to have found our bottom of the market. So now, if you add in a reasonable expectation of expense, this has to look pretty attractive as we come out of this for people of substance that are going to be here for a long time, and they get to live in this extraordinary way with an extraordinarily well-designed apartment that's unique to them, that they couldn't have, that they didn't have the bandwidth for without people of substance. So,
Dan, could I suggest that the brokers on the call who do have estate condition apartments in their inventory, take those apartments and their data, go to dfastudioprogram.com. You can plug in all the numbers in the calculator and you can get a sense. You can look at those numbers and see, because those are there for people who want to go take advantage of the value that they can create with that. So that tool is there for you all now. You can just use that and get that information.
And it may help your buyers understand where they should be pricing too. We've talked to a lot of brokers about that this tool says, okay, you're selling it as if it's move-in condition, but truly you haven't touched it in 40 years. Whoever buys it is going to spend X. Here's a document that shows you how much they're going to spend. It may help your sellers understand where they should be pricing an apartment.
You think it's always been a question as to whether with a rec, whether it makes sense for the seller to renovate and then sell. And we've always, I think almost every broker would say, no, everyone has, next buyer, you're not gonna be able to anticipate their needs, et cetera. I wonder if that notion will change at all.
I love that question. I always said that if I could speculate in a type of real estate, it would be in co-ops where we know how much value we create, and wouldn't that be a wonderful thing to do? I think it takes a tremendous amount of vision for a seller to renovate the right way. If you put, we tried to design the studio program as the most efficient use of capital that we knew how to use, that would be appropriate to a market and to be fungible. But we find that most owners say, okay, we're going to spend, let's say we say it's a $750,000 renovation. They'll say, okay, we're going to spend $375,000 renovating. And they'll create another fish nor fowl renovation. We call it A, B, or C. You either kind of have to really commit to doing it to unlock the value, or you get kind of stuck in nowhere's land. So I don't think, I'd be surprised if somebody wants to do it in the smartest way that we know how. But I think that if you truly find that that buyers can't see it, it may come to pass that sellers decide to go ahead and renovate. I'm also interested that when they decide to do that, then all of a sudden they take it off the market because they enjoy it so much.
When I actually posed the question, if anybody's working with a buyer looking for these type of properties, Lydia, you chimed in on the message board that with the saying, yes, you are. Would you mind talking about the kind of where the objective of your buyer and what concerns they're voicing?
Sure, sure. Hold on a second. Let me just tell my son to be quiet. John, I'm on. Be quiet. Sorry, we're working at home. Yeah,
Don't
we
worry,
have a couple of. How are you? I can do the video if you want.
You know, no worries. Whatever's easiest. And don't worry about the kid. I do that 10 times a day.
Yeah.
So don't sweat it.
Anyway, so we have a couple of estate apartments, and we have a lot of demand right now. I mean, I'm shocked at the amount of people who are sort of circling around waiting for the prices to crash. So yeah, I think there's an opportunity for renovation for people who have the money to do it and the time and the patience.
We should start that movement.
But what specifically, I mean, are they voicing any concerns given, you know, the change and all the changes going on in the market right now, or there's no real specific, you know, issues they're having?
Well, I think that right now right now we're seeing inability to get into buildings to even do estimates for renovation. So that's a big issue, and that's a little bit of a barrier. But I think serious buyers are going to be doing what they always did, getting great deals, creating the space that they'd like for themselves. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Lydia, if it helps, nice to see you, not on Facebook, but on this Zoom call. Please share with them, please feel free to print out, or we can help you print out a estimated renovation cost for any of those apartments, and also to find out whether or not it's consistent with where the seller is expecting to price it. Because we kind of know what the market looks like maybe we know what the market looks like for what's completed and done. But we don't, the calculator is design blind, other than, you know, and it gives you it also spits out, if you don't like any of these designs or finishes or a studio program, it also gives you the top end of what other clients have been spending when they're not straitjacketed by the studio program. And that may help buyers who are like, I can't get an estimate, I don't know what it's going to cost. Well, here it is. This is what it's going to cost. And that may help that piece of it, especially for buyers that can't get in. It's a very timely program for that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm going to keep it in mind. I wasn't really aware of it until today. So this is great. This is helpful. Thank you.
Sure. And also, following on that, anytime you want to call and speak to Gus at Zoom or me or any of our team to say, hey, we're thinking this, it doesn't need A, B, C, help me think through what it might cost. We really don't need to see the inside of an apartment other than your verbal description of it to get really close to the pin as to what something's going to cost.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. That's why we're talking to real estate brokers as opposed to, advertising in Architectural Digest or something. We think you all are the key to making markets happen. And how can we help?
Thank you so much.
Did anybody else have any questions or anything you want to talk about? Let me check the message board. No. Daniel, any other anecdotes you want to provide to the group, or anything else you wanted to touch upon?
Not so much. I do think for all of you, we imagine the Department of Buildings is against us. We don't see that at all. It's pretty easy to know what they care for and what they don't care for. And most of what we all want to do for our clients fall within what they reasonably see. And I think the same thing is true as working with the Better Buildings, working with the building architects and building managing agents. This is a product class that everyone's afraid of, and we think professionally guided, one shouldn't be. And I think that's even more true coming out of this, because we're going to see this flood of estate condition apartments come on. Part of that's very sad, that just demographically and from an economic standpoint, we think that that's really going to be an unstoppable trend. And we think those are one of the places where we see the most opportunity. And I think it's a long road before the overall community joins us in that. And so we just want to be here to help people understand that it isn't as scary as the stories go. And the scary stories come out of a time when buildings and building architects and contractors, real estate brokers, don't want to work so hard. This is the time to work hard on really substantive, valuable things. And it's a reinvestment in these wonderful buildings, these wonderful apartments that need a second life, and that everybody shares a sense of partnership with this. There isn't any stakeholder out there that's trying to hinder the renovation and restoration of these wonderful units. And we want to concentrate on this market because we think it's wildly underserved and misrepresented historically, but even more so, I think we're all going to be welcomed by the sellers, by buyers whose enthusiasm we can stoke, and by all of the people that are in the support system, including the buildings, the managing agents, the Department of Buildings, and our contractors. So we're incredibly bullish on this product class, and we hope that everybody joins us in it, and we hope we can give people the tools to make it less scary and less mystifying.
Thanks, Dan. Oh, sorry, go for it.
Here, it's June Gottlieb. I do have one very specific question that I heard recently from a builder of a project, which is that, you know, they order their stuff ahead of time, and they were told that in terms of getting, for example, kitchen cabinets, because of the social distancing, they now don't know if they're going to get their kitchen cabinets manufactured and delivered to them. They were told it will either be 2 weeks or 14 weeks. Those are very different numbers. Those are very different timelines, I should say. Can you tell me, I know you said earlier that you're moving as much to off-site as possible, which of course, but how are you going to handle your own manufacturing and your own millwork facility with the social distancing, and how will that impact timelines to get stuff done and delivered to your projects?
It's a fabulous question, June. The first answer is specific to that conundrum is to have control of our own shops. So Gus isn't going to have that problem. He's going to have his problem of whether or not how much work he has that within his control to know what his lead times are going to be. And you're going to be able to buy the raw materials one way or another. So that contractor is doing exactly what our industry as a whole has done since the time that I started, which is to build in unknowns as opposed to go ahead and say, hey, we can do this. As far as working offsite, the biggest thing that we've seen is staying away from really expensive and challenging site finishing processes. So we always like our wood floors being site finished. I wouldn't be surprised if we find ways to have pre-engineered floors go down where we don't spend 2 weeks site finishing. We've always liked field painting as opposed to shop painting because it can be touched up. We're going to start shading our efforts towards shop painting where we have more control. What we have to do is we have to find ways to excel during times when different challenges find our way to our doorstep. And what a thrilling challenge that is, as opposed to any contractor who kind of throws up their hands and says, I don't know how we can do it. is another opportunity for all of us to find people of substance who find solutions to these challenges. It's not to say that the challenges won't be there, June, but there have to be answers. And that's what we stay up all night trying to think of is how do we design better in this time and how do we build better? And how do we, I mean, you can't do electrical work, roughing work offsite. You can't do framing or plumbing work offsite. But you can certainly pre-buy the plumbing fixtures you need so that they're on your own shelf as opposed to waiting for fulfillment from China.
If I may add to that, the problem you're describing is a problem that's existed with contractors for the longest time. All these high-end cabinet shops always have a 12-week lead time. This is something that I corrected by opening up my own cabinet shop about 7, 8 years ago. And my own 10,000 square foot warehouse where I can store things in Long Island City. So Zoom contracting specifically does not have that problem because I have full control of everything. I am able to buy materials to build cabinets. And I do have access to different cabinet companies for standard cabinets, let's say something that you would buy for not a studio renovation, but let's say a typical renovation that you buy your basic cabinets. Those companies are still open. I've actually ordered a kitchen yesterday, and I finalized today. So these are manufacturing companies that are in, there's one in New Jersey, one in Pennsylvania, one in Virginia that I deal with, name brand companies, they're open for business. Now, if we cannot deliver the kitchen to the building, we deliver it to my shop here in Long Island City, and as the building allows, we deliver the building. That's the solution to that problem.
Well, and that's that problem, June and Gus, thank you. The bigger challenge is one that our industry has faced for the beginning of time, which is if people want to find reasons to not excel, it's really easy. What you want to find are people that will see a brick wall and say, how do I get over it? How do I get through it? What are we going to do to make this work? As opposed to not. And when we look for contracting partners, the ones that we struggle with are the ones that explain to me in absolute clarity why they can't do something, as opposed to and what we look for are the contractors who say, okay, well, I can't do that, but what if we do this? And so we use a yes and philosophy to say, yes, that's true. And why don't we look at this as an option and try to figure that out? It's going to be hard going for quite a while, but that's what creates the opportunity. We're going to see apartments trade at numbers. We were already seeing it when I was downtown. I was talking to Ken Sheff about an apartment we both knew at 540 Park Avenue. And I think it was within his shop. And I'd looked at it for 2 different clients within a week. And it had started at a $5 million ask and it was down to a $3 million number. And both of my clients backed away from it for very different, very personal reasons. But it was clear that the value was there. And so if we believe that the value will come back in New York City, and I don't believe there's anybody on this call that doesn't believe that, we wouldn't be on this call. Wow, what an opportunity to buy that apartment at $3 million, put $1 million in and have $1 million of value below where it was trading, wherever that is. If we don't believe in markets, well, we spend an hour together not going anywhere. What we don't want to do is have people come in and say, I don't know what it's going to cost, or I can't know until you tell me, or we don't know when a kitchen's going to come. All of that is noise, probably for somebody looking to either explain how they're not going to succeed or find a way to charge you more. And we want to be that other kind of community who gives you some clarity.
A junior example is also quite interesting in that, as Gus said, it's a long-term existing question in terms of lead times and suppliers and what decisions to make there. And it's a good analogy for the studio program in general and before, in that we also have always taken the availability, as well as the quality and the aesthetics concerns in our selections for the studio program. And that will also be something that moves forward here. You know, we make sure that the materials we spec are ones we can get. Not only are they high-end and beautiful, but they're from suppliers that we have good relationships with, and that we know we're not going to be surprised by some out of the blue 12-month lead time. So it's also part of the design process.
Could I ask you one last very specific question? I'm sorry, which is windows, you know, where you have to supply windows or you have to install windows. Who's your go-to window company, number one? And number two, are you anticipating any problems in that field, in that segment, in that leg of renovation and material supply?
I'll take that, I think, Gus. The studio program calculator is based on the Marvin Ultimate Double Hung window, which is the window that we use in 90% of our landmark pre-war renovations. Obviously, if you're in a post-war building, you're going to go to a skyline or a panorama or an aluminum window, and we're actually going to then reprice the calculator based on that decision. So if it's a pre-war 6/6 window, wood double hung, you know, molding on the brick molding on the outside to match, and clad on the exterior, we're probably going to go to Marvin in their Ultimate Double Hung, although Pella right now at exactly par dollars is pretty competitive. So it'd be, you know, you might say, oh, I like the Pella window better or the Marvin window better. But they are best in class, landmark approved, what they should be. And also what's consistent with the building's master plan. The building may have a master plan arrangement if it's a landmark district with a certain window provider, and that's the one we would pick.
Hey, Dan, here's a question on the chat from Diane Weston, which I think will give an opportunity to show a little bit about how deep the studio program goes. The question is, does your calculator take into consideration moving or removing walls? And does that change the estimate appreciably?
I just typed my reply to that, although I realized there was a question in between it, so it was going to seem like it was out of sequence, so I didn't hit send. But the answer that I wrote was yes, it takes into account the moving of walls and no change in the calculator price. Believe it or not, the calculator doesn't care whether you have 2 bathrooms or 3 bathrooms. What we're doing with it is we've taken 30 projects and synthesized them by square foot cost and said these are gut renovations. And well, if you had, you know, 3 bathrooms versus 2 and a large kitchen versus a small kitchen, we won't make as much money. We don't really care, right? We want the walls in the right place. There is really no difference in expense between chopping new electric through a gypsum block wall and properly building a new wall somewhere in the place. We have to go through full demolition. The closer we can get it back to a white box, the easier the build out. So it really doesn't matter whether we're sensitively chopping through or building new walls. Happy to do it and happy to have the volume of business that allows us to pre-price. And I think of that question, I think that's the place where people are so surprised. And the question that I probably didn't answer as well as I could have. So if Gus or Kent, you want to expand on that with maybe some funny stories, because we've all had this situation where a client said, I don't want to pay to demolish those walls, and they walk in and find that we've knocked them down anyway, because it was less expensive to build new than it was to feather into the old. But I'll let one of you guys take that.
Many times that I've done estimates from plans from various architects where there's a save the wall. And we sit here in the office and we're like, all right, how are you going to save that wall? And how are we going to be able to make it look right? What if it's off square? How is this going to line up with that? How are we going to make the molding look right? And we say, all right, there's no way to do that unless we've done with the wall. So in our estimate, before we even give it in, sometimes we actually add that we figured our estimates to be that way and take the wall out, because it's most of the times cheaper to demo it and rebuild it than to try to save it. Now, some buildings require you to save stuff, and then we have to follow those rules. But most of the time, it's not the case. Ken?
With having said that, of course, my great mentor in life taught me about preservation. And when we were discussing it, it's like, if it's worth saving, spend any money you need to save it. If it isn't worth saving, get out of the way and make sure that what you're building today is better than that which you tore out. And so if it's a gypsum block wall, we're really hesitant to rip it out. We're not doing it to economize. We're doing it because it's in fundamentally the wrong place. And so we're indifferent from a cost standpoint, but we're in no way indifferent on a design standpoint to best design solution. And oftentimes that best design solution is keeping those wonderful gypsum block walls and plaster moldings. And there's nothing, if there's no reason to remove something, it's very simple. There's no reason to remove something. But if we have to, it doesn't change or impact the cost structure.
Did anybody else have any other questions? So I saw one question that popped up on the message board about credits. So to give you guys a little bit of background on what we're doing, typically speaking, I conduct a continuing education class exclusively for NYRAC every other week. And then we fill in the other weeks with a 30-minute Q&A session that we've entitled Coffee Talks, which has both garnered tremendous attendance. And as a value add to other NYRAC sponsors through the New York Real Estate Center, we've actually been trying to conduct CE classes highlighting various sponsors of NYRAC with our school, myself really just moderating. So it was really interesting today to hear, Daniel's overview on alterations, all the issues we've discussed. I hope you guys found it beneficial. We will be issuing 1.5 CE credits. So if you sign the Jot form link, my assistant Sam will email you a certificate for 1.5 credits for today's topic. And one other really cool thing I wanted to talk to you guys about before I turn it over to Daniel and everybody else for some parting words is this Thursday, I'm conducting my first webcast to the real estate community. Thursday at 3 o'clock, you can sign, I believe Anna or Al may have circulated the invitation. I'm doing a 30-minute session. It's unaccredited, but it's solely a 30-minute session to talk about how to renegotiate residential and commercial leases in light of the pandemic. So every week I'm going to be doing a 30-minute webcast. In 3 out of 4 weeks, I'm going to come up with a topic that I think is timely, like the one we're discussing this Thursday. And then once a month, I'm going to do a 30-minute Q&A session where people email me questions in advance, and then I pick my 5 favorite questions to answer. So that way, I'm not necessarily dictating the conversation and the topic. I'm hearing what the community is concerned with. And I always say, you guys see majority of the issues before I do. So it's I think, great for both of us. Right now, I think we already have 150 people signed up for Thursday. So luckily, we live in a virtual world with no cap on attendance. So if anybody's interested, I'll throw you guys the link in the message board. And with that said, Daniel, let me turn it over to you guys for some parting words and make sure, everybody has your contact info and all that stuff.
Thanks, Pierre. This is great. This is the first time we've ever done this. It's one of the hidden virtues or hidden opportunities, I think, of what we're all going through in our remote learning and staying at home. The takeaway that we want you to have, in which, I could like to be as good a spokesperson as Pierre, is that this is the right thing to do for these properties, and that it's a ton of fun, and that the reward that our clients feel is our juice. It's what keeps us going every day. That, you get to see people live their best lives, and that this shouldn't be a product class that we denigrate. It should be a product class that we embrace, and that for the right people who have the right long-term vision and the right sensibility, there's no better way to live. This is a pro-New York thing. This is a pro-real estate thing. This is a pro-quality of real estate, because there's nothing that approaches these estate condition apartments in underlying fundamental quality. And we want to be the group that works with you guys to help you help your sellers and your buyers embrace it and feel really excited about what can be, as opposed to fearful of it. So whatever we can do to help you all, let us know. We know this product class, we know the renovation game, and we're willing to commit to it in ways that we don't think other people ever have been before. And that's just come straight out of a place of passion and love. So thank you all you guys really are on the front lines, or you will be coming out of this, because we're going to have a tremendously hesitant community. And anything we can do to demystify and to help you guys get to good places for your buyers and sellers, who I know you all very well. They're all your friends. So let's not mislead them, and let's get them to the right place. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks, guys. Thank you all. Nick, do you have anything? Nick, Anna, Al, anything you want to say before we conclude?
Nothing from our end. Just an enormous thanks to you, Pierre, Daniel, you and your team for a really insightful panel today, and your warm remarks and insight and intelligence. Thank you all for attending, and just please everyone be safe, and we're looking forward to seeing you all soon.
Great. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you, guys. Thank you,
Thank you
everybody.
all.
Likewise,
Be
thanks
well.
for a great presentation.